From the beautiful Finger Lakes region of upstate New York, this is the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. We take questions from anyone in the dental profession and discuss what it takes to win not only in dentistry, but in life. Business, leadership, relationships, parenting, health and wellness, money management, nothing is off limits on the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. I'm Jason Tenori, your host, and have over 20 years of experience to pull from. Learn from my mistakes and let me help you collapse time so you can become the best version of yourself. Yo, welcome back. Dr. Jason here from Dental Lighthouse Podcast. Super excited for this episode today. I am on the phone, or actually I am on the Zoom with Dr. Alan from Ohio. And Alan is going to unpack the ultimate dilemma of what is my why? What do I need to do next? And what am I trying to do with my life? So him and I have talked a little bit before we hit record. So I got a little bit of context from him. But I'd like for him to kind of unpack his situation as best he can. And then, as you know, I'll just ask some clarifying questions. And my hope is this conversation can help you in some way figure out your own why or your own purpose or what you need to do next. So with that, Alan, thank you so much for joining the show.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, super excited to have you. So like I kind of teased a little bit at the beginning, and before we hit record, you're kind of in this pivotal point where you can do status quo, kind of keep things as is, or there's an opportunity that you are considering and just maybe want to talk it through with someone on, what should I be considering when deciding if this is something that I want to do next? Is that safe to say?
Yep.
Yeah. So just for our listeners, why don't you give, a 30,000 square foot view on what you currently have going on, and then what the opportunity is, and then we'll ask some clarifying questions from there. Sound good?
Sure. So I've been an owner of this practice for almost 4 years. We've grown it quite a lot, from 700 to 2.5 million. Take home has gone up a lot, much higher than I ever cared to make or expected to make. And so I'm in a situation that I think most people would strive to get to. And I've done all that while cutting back to 2 days clinically. So when you see that, I think most people think, okay, that's great. Be happy with it and just settle in. And I feel very blessed to be in the position I'm in. With that said, the office has grown very quickly. And we've expanded from, with 4 ops to 5 ops. We've grown from 3 team members to 12 team members. And whether it's this move that has become available to me or another move, it's trying to kind of sort out my why, because as we discussed, I think the biggest reason people move or expand is they want to make more money and be less clinical. That kind of seems to be the reason. And again, for me, it's not more money. Less clinical would be nice, but I think it's maybe more about the optionality of, being able to add team members or not, being able to have, an ortho bay or not. And ultimately, is that optionality worth a $2 to $2.5 million loan to do everything I would need to do to move, including, the huge amount of stress involved with that while I've got 2 little ones at home.
Okay, cool. So let me just summarize that. Not in an effort to, question what you're saying, but in an effort to make sure that we're all on the same page. So bought a practice, you've pretty much built it up quite a bit. You almost tripled in revenue. It's small, but it's serviceable. You work part-time and you work part-time clinically, I should say. And currently right now you are okay with your clinical schedule. You make enough as a clinician and owner to more than support your family. The office is open beyond your 2 clinical days. So you must have an associate or 2 that you trust and that provides the same quality of clinical care that you do. And the assumption is that they're not partners, but they're just good long-term associate fits. Is that safe so far?
Yes, I've actually only had an associate for a year. So I started my first 2 years, I was 4 days a week. I then cut back to 3 days a week, but it was just me. And then this past year, we've had an associate 3 days a week while I've gone to 2. So they're new, but they've done well.
Okay, cool. So now we're in this, I don't want to call it plateau, but we're in this phase where things are humming along, you have a great team, you're making a good income, and this opportunity presents itself. And now the question is, what's next? Do I take on this opportunity and the pluses and negatives that come with it? Why am I even considering this opportunity? And just trying to talk through with someone on what I should do next. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, and again, that's definitely why also with your experience, I remember even talking to somebody you work with and saying, I really wonder what this guy's why is because you've obviously, I'm sure yours is not for the money either, and really push past things. So kind of diving into that too, just the psychology there.
Yeah, awesome. So you said something a few minutes ago. Most people will expand for more money or more choices. And I do think that that's true to a certain extent. It's been my experience as a coach that most people expand because everyone else is expanding, right? It's like this comparison is the thief of joy. So they just assume that they're supposed to expand when they're at capacity. And when you ask them why, they're like, well, that's what you do, right? That's what everybody does, right? So I think the fact that you're even pausing there and asking yourself is just a huge testament to the fact that you've really thought this through. Um, but going back to your point about what is the why, it's super important. So, you're a young guy, um, and I personally feel I'm 50. I personally feel that you get to a certain point in life where you need to make sure that your life has purpose. You've already alluded to the fact that you're making plenty of money. You can support your family in a way that you maybe never thought that you could. So that box is checked. You're present for your two young kids. That box is checked. But at a certain point, you're going to have some reason to get out of bed. Now, for a lot of people, that's their profession. Um, it sounds to me like you have other things going on outside of dentistry, and that could ultimately be what your why is. My why is I just love the idea of serving. I love the idea of serving, obviously, patients. And the bigger we get, the more patients we can serve. And I love the challenges of scaling and doing it in a predictable way, almost like the anti-DSO, right? But more importantly for me, I love creating opportunities for people in my organization to give them a career that brings them joy and fulfillment, to give them a career where they could be the primary earner and support their family, even as a female, as most of my employees are females. So that's what gets me out of bed. I'm infatuated with thinking about how can I give more opportunity to my team that's going to give them a profession, a career, an opportunity to just have one career of joy and fulfillment and financial success. How can I continue to do that? So, and again, I wasn't sharing that just to share it. I was sharing it because you brought it up. But that's what keeps me going. To your point, it's not the revenue, it's not the EBITDA, it's not like I don't need to do it anymore. But I do know that if I stop doing it, I would lose my mind and my wife would kill me because
Mhm.
I would have nothing else at this point in my life has given me a sense of purpose. So that's the first thing I would be asking you is could you, for lack of a better term, coast doing what you do? And do you feel like you would get complacent? Would life get boring? Would you start to drag? Would you feel like you don't have a North Star that you're heading towards?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's ironic because most of my life has been about progress, 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 physical progress, financial progress, educational, and all of that. And it is clearly my psychology that drives me. I mean, obviously it drives everybody, but it really drives me. And I've always said, I don't understand how anybody's bored. I mean, like, I don't get it because there's so much to do. If I didn't have to work, I would read all of these books. There's just a million things I could do. And I say that, but then when I try to give myself any free time, I find it very hard to just sit down and read a book because it's not stimulating enough anymore. I try, and that could be its own issue. But all I have to say is while there is so much in theory I could do, sometimes I just wonder, am I just wired to just progress in certain ways? And it's just very hard to stand still. So, in one sense, and then there's, not to get too rambly, but I know there's other forms of progress than just growing the practice. Even if I stay where I am now, I would focus on practice progress like, maybe it's delegating more, maybe it's increased skill set clinically. Like I know there's other ways to progress, but that is the idea of just coasting, whatever, like that is not okay for me. It's got to be progress somewhere. And I guess it's determining, do I keep progressing in my own practice in various ways or the expansion way?
Yeah, such a great point, right? So when I talk to coaching clients about ways to grow their practice without growing their physical footprint or growing the number of employees they have, they kind of look at me funny because they don't think about, okay, if I don't grow top line revenue, you could grow EBITDA. If I don't grow top line revenue, I could grow my employees. I could expand their skill set. I could, to your point, I could delegate more responsibility. I could bring different skill sets to the practice. Like there's so many different things that you can do within your same four walls. And you obviously have the mindset of doing that. I guess what I'm asking more so is if, let's just call it professionally, if you don't feel like you're going to be stimulated professionally based on where you're at, are there other areas of your life that can stimulate you, that can get you out of bed, that can, like, can you, like a side hustle or just way more? Maybe it's a community activity, maybe it's writing a book, maybe it's pursuing a side career. Like, I'm just asking, like, again, out of ignorance, what else do you have that could keep you busy that you're going to absolutely jump out of bed to do?
So this is where, again, things I might say, I don't know if that actually comports with what I have. So without getting into too much detail, I mentioned to you like a side hobby I have, and that is great, and I love that. One of the things that it's funny, like I genuinely don't care so much about just the money, and yet I do find that I still talk about that as what drives me. It's weird. It's like I am all on board with the fact that like, hey, it doesn't matter how much you die. Like when you die, whatever's in your account doesn't matter. All that stuff. And yet, just as like a silly anecdote, when I was a kid, and my dad taught us about like finances pretty young, and we went on this vacation, and he gave us $100 and said, anything you don't spend, you can save. It's yours. And I came back with like $87. Like I just didn't spend it. So I just have always been driven by that. And when I think about this side hustle that I really enjoy, I've always just thought, man, there's just no way this is ever going to compare to the money that can be made in dentistry. And so that's why I'm not going to take it more seriously. So even though I say the money doesn't matter as much, you can tell by my actions that like that's how I gauge things, right? So
Yeah.
yes, I have, my family is awesome. I have a lot of things I like to do. I'm very big on friends and family and all of that. Would that be enough to drive me? I'm not sure. I hear these stories about people who they do make a ton of money, they retire early, they travel around with their family for 3 months, and then they go crazy and they think like, okay, I thought this was going to be this amazing thing, but now it's not stimulated enough. I'm sure you've heard many of those stories too.
100%. I've actually lived some of those stories, but I think you're in a unique position where because you work part-time clinically. Now, I don't, we haven't really unpacked how much time you dedicate towards work in general on the dental practice. Let's assume it's 30 hours a week. So if you're spending 30 hours a week on clinical and non-clinical dentistry running your business, then you do have margin to do some of these other things. And you can do those other things without sacrificing what you currently have. So you almost can like beta test what you truly are going to be passionate about. Like it's the classic example of people say, I retired so I could play golf, and I played golf for a month and now I hate golf, right? So now what do I do? So you're in that situation where you can kind of try different things. And if you do have this other activity that you're passionate about, one option to consider, and again, I'm not giving advice, I'm just trying to make sure that you're asking yourself the right questions. One thing to consider would be like, what if I doubled down on this? Like, what if I looked at my week on a regular basis and I put 10 hours a week into this thing? Is it going to fulfill me? Is it going to drive me even more? Or am I going to then come to the realization that, this is fun, but I don't think I don't think I want to put all my chips in this basket. I, I think that would be something to consider. I will share with you just based on someone that has grown multiple times over, and we were talking a little bit about this before we hit record, moving into a bigger facility where you have to take on more providers, more equipment, more debt, more management, more leadership. It's a headache. And there's a learning curve associated with it that is not for everybody. Now, based on how successful you are with your current practice, I have no doubt that you'll be able to pull it off. The question becomes, do you want to pull that off? And is that something that you really, even though we know you can take it on, do you want to do that? It's like, I hate swimming. I could swim across, we live on this lake. I could swim across the lake. Do I want to do it? Fuck no. Oop, I shouldn't have said that. But I don't like, so I know I can do it, but does that mean I should do it? Um, so that's just like what's kind of coming to me in conversations with you about, I have no doubt that you can do it, but I just pick up this tone in your voice that's like, I just feel like it's not what you want to do, at least right now.
Yeah. So a few comments on that. So it's funny, as I've had this discussion, I've had four trusted people in my life, some who were like heavily in dentistry, who have said basically iterations of, I know you can do it and you'll make it work. I just don't know if you should, kind of thing. And as far as the right now aspect of it, if this opportunity just remained in limbo, it's like, hey, at any point you can buy this building or whatever, I would not do it right now. Maybe it would be a year from now, maybe it'd be 3 years from now, but I wouldn't do it now. I would say, okay, let's keep maxing this thing out. Our patient count is close to capacity, but not quite there yet. Let's see how these things go, stabilize for like a year or so. And then the last comment, just as far as this other, side activity, I have gone pretty hard into that activity when I first got started with it before having kids. I enjoyed it. I don't think I would ever want it to be like a full-time thing, even if I was like 100% financially set. I enjoy it, but there's just things about it that I would not like about it full time. But I have thought, like, if for some reason, I don't know, somebody just gives me as much money as I ever want and I'm retired from dentistry, I would go full bore into that thing because it's something I'm passionate about, but not as this is now how I make money, more of let's see how far I can take it, if that makes sense. So it's just that next project, that next stimulation. But I wouldn't say that like I would choose it over dentistry if I still have to work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. So I guess with that additional context, do you feel that working 25 to 30 hours a week on the dental business doesn't afford you the opportunity to spend some additional time in your week trying to maximize this other hustle?
No, I could do it more. I guess what I'm saying, yeah, I don't feel like this other side hustle is held back by dentistry.
Okay.
It's definitely held back since having two little kids. That has cut the
Right.
time dramatically.
Right.
But no, I could do it more. If anything, I've actively turned down uh, opportunities in that industry just because it hasn't been worth it to me. This thing might give me $100 for an hour of work or whatever. And that's just like, why would I do that when I could, do a crown in an hour? So,
Right.
so, and the things I do that, it's just what I want to do. Like I basically do it at the level that I want, if that elaborates at all. The maybe one point just to mention is you said maybe it's 25, 30 hours. That is definitely something, regardless of where I go, I need to work on. Some of our mutual friends have kind of like made fun of me for the fact that like I definitely spend too much time on, quote unquote, on the business when I'm not there. So I'm clinical Monday and Tuesday, but I'm still to this day at the office all day Wednesday, Thursday. And then I also would definitely let it lead into my Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which
Right.
could be an argument against expansion, that if I have such a hard time stepping away now, I might just never sleep again if it's, a 3 times larger thing, which would concern me. I mean, I do have a hard time stepping away. And most people say, why don't you just do your admin Wednesday and not think about the practice Thursday through Sunday? I've just never been able to do that.
Well, that's another opportunity for growth, right? Again, the traditional model of growth is more operatories, more revenue. But another way to grow is to do the same amount of revenue and the same number of operatories with the same hours per week, but with you removing hours per week from things that you're dedicating to work. So just to throw numbers at it, if I'm hearing you correctly, let's say you're dedicating 45 hours a week towards work. I would argue, just based on what you said, challenging yourself. You had mentioned how you're driven, you're constantly trying to challenge yourself. Can you do the same exact thing? Same amount of revenue, same amount of morale, same amount of culture, same amount of profitability. Can you do it on 35 hours a week? Can you do it on 30 hours a week? Like that would motivate me. That would be like, okay, I'm going to push myself. I'm going to challenge myself. I'm still driven. I'm going to do the same exact thing in half the time. I mean, again, not half the time for you, but you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah, and I probably have to like put a timer on it or something too, because it blends in and to some degree, I don't know if it's necessarily bad because if you're passionate about something, you're not tracking the time. And there is a part of me that I clearly am passionate about growth and dental business. I mean, I've gone from most of my, listening time being these other hobbies to it's like 80% of the podcasts I listen to are dental podcasts. And, I just am thinking about it all the time. And it's not like those aren't bad. I look and I say, oh, look, the Lighthouse has a new episode, or, this like shared practice has a new episode. And I'm just always listening to things. I'm talking with, some of our mutual friends frequently about the dental stuff. So it's not all bad at all. My one friend who has gone into just 1 day clinical, he's got 2 offices with a partner. I mean, I just got off the phone with him and he's like, it's something I am passionate about. So it's it's a love hate thing, I guess. Sometimes I say, oh, I just want to be able to step away. But clearly there is a passionate part of it because I'm just frequently thinking about it. And there's a quote, like you tell me what you think about and I'll tell you what you are. And
Yeah.
clearly, the ownership. I don't listen to any clinical podcast. It's
Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
all the ownership.
Yeah. So maybe that's what's going to end up driving you more. And maybe that's what gives you the most sense of fulfillment is kind of more the seat that I'm in now. I haven't been clinical in about 2 years. And not to suggest that you should be non-clinical, but I am very, very passionate about scaling organizations predictably, maintaining the culture, maintaining the quality of care. And a lot of times we get it right and sometimes we don't. And it keeps me up at night, but in a good way, right? Like I can't stop thinking about how to get better. And I don't mean better with my crown margins. I mean
Mhm.
better like from a cultural quality of care perspective. And if that's what drives you, and the fact that you're listening to a lot of dental business leadership management podcasts and not, how to do FMRs, suggests that that's, what's driving you. One of my first coaches, Dr. Mark Cooper, would always say, don't tell me what you're passionate about. Show me your calendar and show me your checkbook, and then I can tell you what
Mhm.
you're passionate about. So if a
Yeah.
majority of your time is spent listening to this content, then you're kind of indirectly telling me that you love it. Um, so I absolutely love what I do. And again, I liked clinical dentistry. I felt like I was good at clinical dentistry. I absolutely love what I do now because it gives me a sense of purpose and I feel challenged by it every day. So if you feel like you're cut from that cloth, then this opportunity could be something to consider. I will argue, and I'm hearing it in your voice, you didn't come out and say it, that there's an underlying fear that if this opportunity goes away, you'll never get another chance. And I have no idea if that's the case or not, but I do know more often than not that when I jump on an opportunity for fear that another one won't come around, it never really ends well for me. So
Hmm.
I have to be ready. And if I'm not ready, I pass. So a great example in my world is practice acquisitions. Like I'll have someone present to me a practice for sale 20 minutes away. It's a great opportunity, but I have boundaries on our own growth and we try to grow 20% year over year. And I don't want to grow more than that because I feel like it stretches us too thin. So if I already have that 20% growth planned out and I don't need this additional practice, even though it's a great opportunity, and oh my gosh, what if something like this never shows itself again? I'll pass on it. And 99 times out of 100, 6 months later, the almost identical opportunity presents itself in some other fashion. So again, you know your real estate market and your geography way better than I do. But I just know that if you're not all in, and all of the highs and lows are going to come with being all in over the next 2 or 3 years, it's going to be a struggle for you. And if it's not the right time, I can almost guarantee that a similar opportunity in some way will present itself in 6 months, in a year and a half, and you'll be more mentally and emotionally ready to say definitively yes or definitively no, as opposed to kind of going in right now. And I'm making some assumptions, but like lukewarm. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And I certainly can think of instances in my life where I did maybe jump on something that I wasn't ready for because it just seemed like the time to do it, kind of a thing. And I, like you said earlier, with a lot of times people expand because other people are expanding. Like that is one of the traps of, you listen to Bulletproof, you listen to you listen to all these people and they're all talking about these, huge, huge projects they're doing. Even my own friends, who are expanding and whatnot. And, that's part of it too. And I'm definitely somebody who can be influenced by what I'm listening to. So I'll listen to a few podcasts again, like Bulletproof. It's like, I got to do this. And then you listen to somebody else who talks about like a lean and mean the machine. And I'm like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I can just do that. I can just be like, I know that about myself. So I guess that's just something I have to consider. But I think also one of my fears I thought you were going to mention, but I know I did say is just the ability to step away mentally is just very hard. I don't know if I mentioned this to you earlier before recording, but like we went on vacation recently and it was the first time in my entire time practice ownership where I just closed everything down for a week. Like I closed my email, I closed, the practice analytics, all that stuff. And I've literally not done that for more than a day in the last 4 years. And it was nice. But it's so hard for me. So, I mean, I guess I would ask you, if I were to take on this project and expand, I know that could be like easily like a 1 or 2 year process for something that size. Is it even realistic to think that I would be able to mentally step away for like, is this one of those things where, hey, if you do it right, you can just put in the work both physically and mentally for 40, 45 hours a week and truly shut down the rest? Or is it like, no, during this time, you just have to accept that you're looking at 70 hours a week of stress constantly for an eventual step back? Like, is it realistic?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think the answer is somewhere in the middle. I'm coaching clients all the time and telling them, as you probably know from some mutual friends, we talk about this concept of an ideal week and how I really want my clients to be um, a slave, for lack of a better term, a slave to this ideal week where they know exactly where they're going to be specific hours of the day. So at the beginning of the week, they can say, okay, I am fully in for 35 hours. I am fully in for 40 hours and not say yes to other things or not try to squeeze other things in. So I would encourage you, if you're not already there, to get to the point where you have, again, whatever amount of hours that you want to dedicate to work, 35, 40, 45 hours, and then you put an ideal week scheduled together. Now, when you take on something like this, you enter a season of your life that's going to be a little bit more chaotic than what you have now. It shouldn't be a 70-hour a week season unless you struggle with micromanagement and delegation and stuff like that. It's a conversation for another day, but it'll definitely be a 55, 58 hour a week season. That season's probably going to last you 6, 9, maybe 12 months. Um, and it is what it is. Like you just do what you have to do. I think as long as you manage expectations primarily with yourself, that it's okay. And then you manage expectations with your wife. Your kids are probably not old enough to have this conversation with, but I remember early on when I was starting my career, I was gone for CE 2 weekends of every month. And it was hard, but I had a conversation with my wife. I said, for the next 3 years, I'm going to be gone twice a month, expanding my clinical skill set. So we're going to be successful. She was on board. I was on board. So having that type of conversation with your wife and saying, I'm going to take on this opportunity. I feel like it's the right thing. It just means that for the next 6 months, I'm going to be, I don't want to say unavailable, but I'm going to be more pressed, 60 hours a week than my normal time. And you guys talk that through and what have you. But yeah, I do think that for a season of your life, this upcoming season, if this is what you decide to do, you're just going to have to realize that it is what it is. And if that's really what you want, then you just go for it. I mean, I can tell you too, based on personal experience, when I'm not all in, that's when shit goes bad, right?
Yeah.
Like when I like abdicate some of the leadership or when I abdicate some of the responsibilities when it comes to practice acquisition or doing a de novo, and I'm like mentally just exhausted, like the project never ends up like I want it to. So you just have to have that conversation with yourself that, okay, if we're going to do this, we're doing it. We're not kind of going in half-assed. We're in it, and then go from there.
How do you distinguish between saying, hey, I need to learn how to delegate to the right people versus, hey, I don't want to abdicate, this responsibility so that the project goes poorly?
I think for something like this, you have to develop relationships with people that you can really trust. You mentioned a designer earlier in the call. So if you have a relationship with someone like that, if you have relationships with contractors, um, you want to make sure that you have trusting relationships. For me, when I was in your position, I started to delegate things that were not involved with the expansion. So let me said another way, I wanted to own the expansion. So I started to delegate other responsibilities that I was currently doing to free up capacity for me. So how you could do that is take a clinical day away and add an associate, right? So you're delegating a day of clinical dentistry, which is completely independent from this new project because you're trying to create margin to focus on this new project. So that could be, and that's an example of kind of what I'm talking about. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
One other question is, I've only had one associate and, there's little stressors and hiccups here, but I feel like I've been fortunate that there's been no real fires, and again, I think I'm probably fortunate in that sense. Is it even realistic to think, hey, down the road, after those crazy 12 months or 2 years, whatever, that you could even have let's call it 14 operatory, 3 doctor, 6 hygienists, that kind of facility, and delegate enough away that it's less, I guess we could just use the word stressful compared to what I currently have. Because I ask, because if it's a matter of, yep, you push through this, but then, on the other side, it's kind of a worth it thing. Great. If it's no, it's just crazy, crazy hectic. And then eventually it just goes down to crazy hectic. Then I'm certainly not one to want to sign up for that, again, because of all those other things in my life. So
Yeah.
obviously you've done it so much. Love your input.
Yeah. I mean, trying to say this in the most humble way possible, it's 100% possible. It just comes down to how much you want it. So my flagship office is a 5 doctor, 4 to 5 doctor, 10 hygienist office. We're in about 20 ops, does about $1 million a month. And I set foot in the building a couple times a month. Like I don't do any clinical dentistry. So that doesn't come just out of thin air. That comes with all of the stress of that season that we just talked about, of getting people calibrated, getting the systems dialed in, just doing the work. So to your point, if you're willing to put in the work to get it right, then you can kind of take your foot off the gas and start to enjoy the fruits of that. Very similar to the position that you're in now, right? The question really becomes, do you want to go into this season and do you want to put your foot on the gas and do all of the things that you will need to do differently when it comes to managing a 15 operatory, 3 doctor, 25 team member facility versus what you have now? And only you can answer that question because I have no doubt that you can do it. It just comes down to, do you want to do that right now at this point in your life?
Right. Yeah. And maybe this is better for after the podcast, but I'd love to dive into that with you as far as like, what that looks like and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, again, I think we probably came up with more questions than answers,
Yeah.
but your dilemma is a good one, and it's one that I know a lot of young dentists have who are really really good at either buying or starting a practice and maximizing it and getting it to the point where it's busting at the seams and there's no capacity anywhere, and now you're faced with this dilemma of, okay, now what do I do? No one taught me in dental school what to do now, right? So,
Yeah, right, exactly.
but I appreciate you being on the show, Alan. I appreciate you unpacking your situation, and hopefully, some of the conversation just leads you to ask yourself better questions that I know you'll ultimately come up with the answer with.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time, man.
All right, thanks. Have a good one, brother.
Thank you. That wraps up another episode of the Dental Lighthouse podcast. You have a choice today. Choose to be a lighthouse. Lighthouses are powerful and steadfast. They are beacons of light for others to reference when life gets turbulent. Go out into the world today and become a lighthouse for someone. Give more than you get. True joy comes from serving others. Start today. I'm Jason Tenori, your host. Thank you for listening to the Dental Lighthouse podcast. For more information, podcast show notes, or links to anything that we have discussed today, please check out our website, thedentallighthouse.com. We would love to hear from you. If you would like to get on the show, please email us at podcast@thedentallighthouse.com.